Hello, my name is Bogdan Constantin. I am the co-founder of Menguin. I also run our tech stack and our growth. Today I want to talk to you guys about how to scale your startup. Let's see if anybody is on. Hello, I'm Bogdan Constantin. I'm the co-founder and CMO of Menguin. We're the world's highest rated suit and tuxedo rental company in the United States. We make it incredibly easy to rent a suit or tux for any big occasion. We deliver it right to your door. Hey guys, glad to be here. I think I'd like to start a couple by taking the first few minutes here and telling you guys a little about Menguin, how we've scaled to where we are today. As I mentioned a little bit about us, we're all online suit and tuxedo rental company disrupting the wedding industry, which is what the majority of suit and tuxes rented in America are for. It's about a $1.5 billion a year industry, so pretty large. And we've been fortunate. We launched in 2014. We've been fortunate over the years to see some great growth, great user adoption, and really bring this product that really changes this industry fundamentally. It's an industry that hasn't changed in over 60, 70 years, and we've been able to change it, which has been really, really cool. We've gotten investment from the likes of, Mark Cuban, Shark Tank, Dallas Mavs, Scott Dorsey sold his company for $2.8 billion to Salesforce. A variety of other high net worth individuals, CEO of Career Builder, some funds with the Walton family money of Walmart, just a variety of different folks we've been fortunate to raise money from over the years since we launched in 2014. And I guess I'll start off by telling you guys a little bit about Menguin in general and how we got started and why. As I mentioned, it's about a $1.5 billion industry, of which wedding suit and tuxedo rental accounts for $1.2 billion. And if you think about it, it's a completely broken process, right? If you're renting a suit or a tux for a wedding, right now you're spending on average 2.5 hours in a store if you're going to rent from a store. It takes a really long time to do all of these things. Not only that, but if you've got out-of-town groomsmen or out-of-town party members, you have absolutely no way of communicating or coordinating to make sure everybody's wearing what you want them to wear, which is pretty crazy. So before Menguin launched, there was no way to make sure that you had a foolproof wedding, which is why you hear all those horror stories of guys, wearing ill-fitting garments or not the right garments and things like that. So we started Menguin to fix that. And how we did that is we actually launched our MVP June of 14. And since then, and back then it was very much an MVP, we were moving things manually on the back end just to make things work. There was little or no automation. But what we did early on is we invested heavily in customer service, right? Making sure that anytime somebody contacted us, called, chat, text, direct message on our social platforms, whatever, we were incredibly responsive, we were incredibly gracious, and we gave them customer service that was unparalleled, right? We took whatever problem or question they had and made it our own, and that was incredibly beneficial because it allowed us to scale really, really rapidly, because we started doing a couple of weddings in 2014, and what we didn't realize at the time is when people get married, they get married in cycles, right? So we'd have, 5 to 10 groomsmen, say, per a wedding event that were renting from us. We'd give them such a great experience relative to like a store. They would go and tell their friends, and then on average, if you're a groomsman in 4 other weddings outside of your own. So these groomsmen that were having these great experiences would go and tell the next groom that they were part of, whose wedding they were part of, and the next one, and the next one. And we've just seen this massive viral growth, which we've been able to sustain by just really having incredible customer service, right? And by doing that, we've just gotten kind of the base has gone larger and larger and larger because of that. So what we've noticed over the years is we've kind of had exponential growth. Year over year, we're at about 7.8x growth on top line, which has been really cool. And you're probably wondering, well, how did you do that? It can't all be customer service. And you're right, it wasn't. A lot of it was product, it was site. But really what we focused on very heavily when scaling our products, it's a great question, Raheel. What growth metrics do you use for Menguin? That's a really good question. We looked at a couple different things. NPS is a big one. That's Net Promoter Score. A lot of big companies use it. It's things like, you've probably seen it On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your experience, or how likely are you to recommend it to a friend? 9 and 10 are positives, 7 and below are negatives. The gold standard for NPS in the industry is Zappos, and I'm sure you guys have heard their customer service is insane. They're at 57. As of our most recent February numbers, we were at a 70, and the max is kind of 100, which is fairly unrealistic because you're always going to have people that don't give you a perfect score, etc. So we look at NPS. I look at day-over-day user growth, month-over-month user growth. I look at things like active accounts on site, right? So how many people created new accounts on our platform, orders out the door, but really the gold star for all this is NPS. We have a 24/7 customer service, so we're looking at things like average call volume, how long are we talking to a customer. We actually penalize, we don't really penalize, but we tell our reps to spend as much time as possible. So I want us to talk to customers at least 3 to 4 minutes, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it is, right? If you're calling, that can seem like a long time. We can fix your problem much earlier. We want to build relationships. So I look at average call time. On top of that, we're looking at things like repeat customers. That's a big metric for us, right? How many groomsmen are coming back as new groomsmen and things like that. That's a great question, Ash. How do you determine a market size when doing projections? We looked at a couple of different research tools early on. We were lucky. We had one of my co-founders was wrapping up business school, so we had access to a whole suite of business school market research products and things like that. But really what we did is a couple of our competitors are publicly traded companies, and this is one of those classic startup type things. Why build something or do something if it's already been done for you? And they actually were disclosing all, the market size and all that stuff on their 10K when they would disclose how much revenue they'd done and what percentage of the market that was. So we just, did a little math there and we were able to figure that out. And I think too often people underestimate doing things like that, right? Well, what are your competitors saying, right? Or especially if you're going up against billion-dollar industries, chances are you've got a big incumbent who's a publicly traded company, has to release financials. Encore, e-commerce systems and tools you recommend. That's a great question. We obviously have a custom site, but we're launching a couple of ancillary product lines. We're getting into groomsmen gifting. We basically want to own the entire wedding life cycle from start to finish. On average, we're acquiring a customer a year before their wedding. They don't need the tuxes until the end, right? But they have other needs. So from an e-commerce perspective, Shopify is a killer. I cannot speak higher of Shopify. And then a couple of add-ons like Olark for live chat. We use TalkDesk for our customer service. And then a couple of other cool tools. Optimizely. A/B testing is huge in e-commerce, right? It can be the little things like a CTA, like a call to action on a button to a hero image to what plays first, whatever. So we A/B test a ton. At any given moment, we have 10 to 15 experiments running with Optimizely, and it's a really cool tool in that marketers can actually run the experiments with no need to code. You have your developers, or if you're using Shopify, you paste a little bit of code on your site, and it's very simple. And from there, you can do anything. You can resize, change text, all in the Optimizely platform. And then we use another tool called Inspectlet, which actually monitors, and it's video of showing exactly what customers are doing on your website from start to finish. And we can, it's incredible to see things like they'll click where there's not a button and stuff like that, and we'll be like, well, we should add a button there. Let's go to Optimizely and test it. So we use those types of tools. And then obviously for analytics, we use Google Analytics, which is pretty robust. And then we recently started using another one called Woopra, which is pretty cool, and that's more for kind of user lifecycle. Tactics do I, Vanessa, what tactics do I recommend to increase customer growth? That's a great one. I try to interview at least 1 to 2 of our customers, both present, so we know if they're going to use us, or past a day. And sometimes I'll bribe them, I'll give them Amazon gift cards and things like that for 10 minutes of their time, and I figure out why they used us, what were their pain points. So talking to customers is the #1 way to grow, right? When I started Mangwin, I thought I had all the answers. I was like, they're gonna love it, right? This is gonna be perfect, and it was just gonna be really for suit rental. I had no idea that the wedding market was gonna be this big, or that's where the majority of the demand was. And if I hadn't talked to our early customers about what they were using the tuxes for, I wouldn't have known that. We completely shifted our business from generic suit and tux rental almost exclusively to wedding because it's the majority of the business, but the problems are very different. So talking to customers is the #1 way to increase customer growth, and not enough people do that. What you do, and what I mean by that is just email them and say, hey, I'm XYZ from XYZ company, saw you're using our product or you're on our page, we're fairly new, or we want to launch some new initiatives. I would greatly appreciate 5 minutes of your time. And if I'm an average person, when you reach out to me like that and you tell me I can have input into this product, that's pretty powerful stuff, and I'll say yes. It's a great question, Real. How do we acquire our first 100 customers? I wish I could say it was magic or that it was super fast, and it wasn't, because weddings take a long time. Like I mentioned, you acquire a customer, but because it's for a wedding, they take a long time to make their decision. So it was very slow going. Our first actual ever customer was this guy named Chris. He actually used us for prom. He needed a last minute order, which we could do and the stores couldn't. He was a kind of a bigger guy, and he had a hard time finding a date. I ended up talking to Chris, his mom, for several hours when this happened, but he ended up getting a tux through us at the last minute. So he was our first customer, and he did it for prom because he got a date at the last minute. And then the rest of our customers were actually just organic Google searches, people searching for out-of-town tux rental. How do I get a tux at the last minute? And we were one of the few people. Can you get? Sorry about that. And what I mean by that is customer service is tantamount. So it's brand, technology, and customer service. So in an old industry, chances are the brand is pretty awful. So we're competing against, you kind of guessed it, Men's Warehouse, Joseph A. Banks, places where when I talk to our customers, they'll say, I didn't want to go there because that's where my dad and my grandfather shop, right? They don't have a brand that's oriented to millennials. They don't speak to the needs of the millennial customer, which is all of our customers are, 25 plus. And they don't have that. So really making sure that the brand is customized to what the millennial needs. Technology is pretty self-explanatory. It's making it really easy and intuitive for the customer to use your website, right? We don't have a web app. We don't have an app. We have a web app, right? So it's mobile optimized, making sure that everything is beautifully designed and it's easy to use, and they can self-serve, right? Millennials love to self-serve. And the third one is customer service, right? If I have a question, you should make it incredibly easy for me to talk to a person. So we have our live chat, which is 24/7. We have our phone calls, we have our texting, we have our emails, and you never wait on an email, for example. You'll never wait longer than about an hour or two max for a response. Or if you want to call us, the longest our wait time has ever been, and that's in peak season, peak wedding season, is about 1 minute 30 seconds. So we've invested heavily in making sure that there's always going to be really friendly, engaging, and smart people that care about your problem that can talk to you right away. That's a great question. Number one is going to be repeat customers, right? Figuring out how the heck do I get customers to come back? They use my product once, sure, they have a great time. How do I convince them to come back? So I'm always looking at that repeat customer number, and it's always growing, which is a really good number to see. And then the other big one is that net promoter, right? Looking at it, because if I'm giving you a 10, that means I love you. That means I love your brand to an extreme amount. And we see a lot of our older guys that have had to rent a couple tuxes from a regular store consistently when they give us 10s. They always recommend us to their friends. And we actually have a drop down when you create an account. How did you hear about us? And friend is about 40 to 50% of our growth, which is pretty awesome. And then we're able to figure out, hey, which friend referred you? And then we can kind of tie all that back together, and we're able to see just how powerful that number is, which is kind of your word of mouth growth number. Customer service, we use a couple of different things. We use Olark for live chat, and then we use TalkDesk for our phone platform. Both are incredibly easy. They're SaaS, so you grow with the program, so you pay per seat or per user. So if you're a small startup, you're probably paying free or like $30 for both combined a month, and then from there it goes up as you add more seats. And we love that approach because as we get bigger, we're able to pay more, but we don't necessarily want to pay a ton, off the bat, and they're both month to month. I'm a huge proponent of any software being month to month because as you grow, you have no idea what your new needs will be and what you need to be shifting to in the future to accommodate that growth. So we, as much as we can, try to stick to monthly contracts in anything that we do, just as kind of as to preserve that optionality. That's a great question. How do we decide what to offer? So our big thing is the 80 for the 20, right? What 20 styles, we've got about 16 now, we're launching 4 more next week. What 20 styles will fill 80% of the demand? You'll notice things like velvet red tuxes are really in right now, and we'll never carry those because we've got about 300,000 suits and tuxes in inventory at this point, and we guarantee we can fit anyone from a boy's age 3 to someone bigger than Shaquille O'Neal because that's what you need to have so you can accommodate anybody's wedding. And it doesn't make sense for us to buy 5 or 10,000, velvet tuxes because it's a fashion risk, right? You might buy these tuxes and they might go quickly out of style. So our big focus instead is the 80 for the 20. What are the most popular styles? The blues, the blacks, the grays that are super in demand that we can carry in great fits that can fit everyone, right? So we don't necessarily take a ton of fashion risk on the actual base suits or tuxes. We do on the accessories, and we're constantly changing those out, seeing what works, what doesn't. making sure that they match bridesmaids' dresses. But if you think about weddings in general, you're not really necessarily looking to take risk, right? Because risk means danger, right? Or something might go wrong for your wedding, and you don't want that to happen. So you're looking for more of the traditional type stuff. So it's a very, very slow changing industry. So how we kind of take risk is through accessories, and we have a director of product that's always sourcing that. You raise money from Mark Cuban. What have you learned from him? Secrets to getting investment from? That's a great question. Mark is a very, very successful guy. He's also very, very, I'm sure you guys have seen him on TV. He's very challenging, right? He's always going to challenge the status quo. Why are you doing this? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? What we've learned from Mark almost off the bat is that we should always be testing and kind of thinking of new ways to engage our customers, to grow, to better leverage them for future growth. So we're always trying to ideate new ways to grow the customer base or to delight the one we already have. So we never settle. That's the big one. Secrets to getting investment from him, that's a great one. I think the biggest thing there is make sure you get an introduction from someone that knows him. And then really convince him that you are an expert in your industry or that you have something that no one else can replicate, and that it's a pretty big industry, right? Mark likes big numbers. He's a billionaire, and at that point, $50 million industry isn't as necessarily as appealing to him anymore, right? For investments and things like that. So show him kind of the forest instead of the trees, right? This is how big this opportunity is, and have a plan for the next couple of years of exactly how this is going to pan out, whether it actually does or not. But just show that you've had that foresight, and then this is step one, this is step two, things like that. We would have loved to go on Shark Tank. The thing with that is you actually can't go on Shark Tank if one of the sharks is already an investor in your company. It's a conflict of interest. We had no idea about that, frankly, when we launched. Shark Tank was still pretty nascent. We would have loved to go on just for the publicity alone and the exposure. But, I don't want to say it's a consolation prize, but we did get Mark Cuban to invest in us, which is pretty awesome. And he's been incredibly helpful throughout the entire journey. But yes, I would have loved to go on there. And had we known that, we maybe would have thought about it. But honestly, we were at such an early stage, and a guy like Mark wants to invest. I mean, you're going to say yes, even if you are told that you can't go on Shark Tank afterwards. One thing I know now that I wished I knew when I started. That's a great question. You don't have all the answers. The only people that can tell you how you're going to grow or how you're going to build your business are your customers. Talk to them. Early on, I started talking to our customers, but nowhere near to the frequency I do now, and that was a detriment because you're always going to get new ideas. You're going to get inspired from them. They're going to tell you their pain points or things that could have been done better, and they're going to influence the next version of your product because these are the people that you need to rep your product, right, and tell their friends about you. So talk to as many customers. Literally, when you first launch and you get 5 customers, you better know everything about those customers. You better know where they live. You need to get so friendly with them that you know everything about them because those are the people that are giving your product a shot, and you need to figure out why and figuring out how those people think will help you get more of those same types of people. Company culture traits that's a great question. We actually have a pretty cool company culture. We screen all of our applicants for 3 individual qualities, and then we have 3 Menguin do's that we talk about. So the 3 things that I'm looking for in all of our hires are positive, self-starting, and supportive. If you are those 3 things, you are going to be awesome to work with. And if you think about it, what does that mean, right? So you're positive. Startups are hard. Every day is a challenge. It's like a roller coaster. If you're a glass half empty kind of person, you're not going to do well in a startup because I can tell you the glass is half empty a lot, right? You have to always be looking for that silver lining. Hey, we took this risk and we messed up, but hey, we learned this, this, and this. So positivity is most important. Second is self-starting. That's I think a no-brainer. If you have to wait to be told what to do, you don't work in a startup. It doesn't make any sense because that's a very corporate-minded type thing to do. And I give an example. Even our interns, they come in and we hire them for a specific task, and they see other things that can be improved upon. It is an expectation that they go out there and improve it, or they take it under their wing, regardless of what their position in the company is. So it's having that inner fire, right? That owner's mentality of this isn't my company, but I'm going to treat it like I own it because I want to show up and do a good job. And the last one is supportive, right? People can have differing opinions. All the time this happens, right? One person wants to do A, one person wants to do B. Regardless of the decision that's made, and regardless of what you wanted, if you can, once the decision has been made, go all in and support whatever decision has been made, number one most important, right? Because while we may want to row in different directions, once we decide in what direction we're going to row the boat, we've all got to row at the fastest pace possible. And then our three do's there are do with integrity, do whatever it takes, and do more with less. And those are kind of the three core values or mission statements of internally for the company, right? So the do with integrity, that's, I think, self-explanatory, right? If you don't have high personal integrity, you're not going to be at Penguin for very long, because we're looking for people that go above and beyond internally for themselves, their teammates, our customers, our shareholders, etc. Do whatever it takes. Again, we're a startup. We expect you to literally do whatever it takes to win and succeed. And that can be things as silly as, cold calling 100 customers to figure out why they used us, or taking the trash out. Whatever it may be, you do that. And the last one, do more with less, right? We are competing in a multi-billion-dollar industry against companies that are very well capitalized, right? They have hundreds of millions of dollars in their balance sheets. So instead of throwing money at problems, which is what big companies do, we throw our minds at problems. And doing that is a game changer. It's a great question. What types of content? I think hiring, firing, and promotion. I think I recently read an article about this, which that really reverberated with me. Your company culture is who you hire, fire, and promote. So I'd love to write more around that, right? Like how to recruit a team, how to go out there and be competitive in that process, how to build that company culture, because it's so important. Even early on, it was me and two other guys that started the company. Even early on, we didn't necessarily think about it right away, because you never really do. But what is your culture? What is the thought process of this company, the ethos that you're going to live and breathe and that you're going to screen everyone else by? So things around that, internal company culture, recruiting, firing, which is a very difficult thing. Promoting in a startup is very difficult, because oftentimes when you promote someone, they have to still do the job that they were doing, and then you give them more additional responsibilities, right? Because you're limited on manpower. So things like that I'd love to write on. And then digital acquisition are things that I've gotten fairly good at. While I say a lot of our growth is now word of mouth driven, we still do have a digital component, things like social media acquisition and Google and Bing and all those places. And I've gotten fairly knowledgeable about those things as well. It's a great question. How building company culture is such a hard thing, and it really has to start with the screening. So like I mentioned, finding people that are positive, self-starting, and supportive is number one for us, because if you're a negative person, you're going to be a pain to work with, and I'm going to hate coming into work every day. Our whole goal is to find awesome people that everyone else gets along with, and they love showing up to work every day because of that. We do bi-monthly temperature checks, is what we call them, where we ask all of our employees, do they feel fulfilled at work, what can be better, all these things. And overwhelmingly, 100% of our employees, and we're 40 plus now in our headquarters, more in our distribution facilities, always say, I love coming to Penguin every day. I'm 100% fulfilled. I'm challenged, and I'm growing. And the reason for that is you're building these great relationships with people that do different things than you do, but at the end of the day have very similar values to you. So that's what we look for. So how you build company culture is by finding your baseline and hiring to that, right? So always making sure that you hire people that are positive, that are self-starters, that are supportive. And you can actually screen those pretty easily in interviews. Most people think, well, I don't know if someone's positive. Here's a great one. Tell me one thing you didn't like about your past job, or tell me one thing you didn't like about your last boss. And if that person that's seemingly positive goes into a 5 to 10 minute tirade about why they hate their last company or their last job or their last boss, they're not a positive person, right? That's a quick hack. The other big thing there, same thing for supportive or self-starting. Why did you choose the school you went to? Why was this the first job you had at a school? Or why did you do this job in high school, whatever it may be? Figure out what their motivations are. Is it, I just needed a job, or I always knew I wanted to do this, and I wanted to get this job to see if I really wanted to do that? Do they have a plan, right? Because if you had a plan of some variety, you're a self-starter. Daily ritual for entrepreneurs, that's a really good question. Yes, I do, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I do every morning. So I'll wake up in the morning, the first thing I'll do is I'll chug water. I think staying hydrated, I'm actually fairly dehydrated now. My wife and I just had a baby, so it's been a little crazy around here. But drink as much water as possible. I've realized that if you're dehydrated, you're just the brain synapses are not firing properly, and you're just going to be sluggish. So the first thing I do is I'll pound water. and then I'll get up, I'll make a quick meal. I'm pretty into slow carb or low carb diet, so I'll have a quick meal there. And then I usually try to get about 15 or 20 minutes of meditation in the morning, and I'll use a variety of different apps. Headspace is a really good one. I've used them all in the past. And I try to get a quick meditation and really just center myself. And then immediately, as soon as I'm done meditating, I kind of figure out what I'm going to do for the day. So I'll write a quick 3 to 5 things on my notes app of what I absolutely have to do or get done that day. And that could be things from yesterday that I didn't finish, or just things that after my meditation I know that these are the things that are going to move the business forward. It's really easy in a startup to be busy for busy's sake, but you never actually move the ball forward. So always having that thought process of what do I need to actually do that's going to improve our business or get us to where we want to go. Social media management tools, we don't use that many, to be totally honest with you guys. We use Hootsuite for scheduling and things like that. Social for us is a really interesting animal because a lot of our growth is word of mouth virality, right? So when you post your wedding photos, you'll tag us and things like that, and we'll always respond, we'll like those and things like that. But it's never as much as in other brands where it's, I'll post aspirational photos or things like that. So a lot of what our social ends up being is people asking questions about the product and the process. And we actually staff a customer service person to respond to those social requests. And we'll use Hootsuite for scheduling and things like that and engaging with our brand, with our audience. What additional types of content would I like to write? Outside of what I already talked about, which is kind of building and scaling company culture, scaling growth. And then I think the last one that I'm really, really interested in in general, this entire startup ecosystem is, I think fundraising is a really challenging one. I've learned a little bit throughout this process. So just writing more and more about the very early intro stages and things like that that's something that I've learned a little bit about, but it's really more relationship based than that, right? Like, how do you build those relationships? How can you promote word of mouth and virality? Give customers an experience that they can't not talk about, right? So often in the e-commerce world or online, we just build a baseline product, good enough, right? MVP. Talk to your customers, figure out what they're looking for, and give 10% more than that, right? That's the value equation, right? I pay $100 for something, and I get something that I thought was worth 200. Holy cow, I got a heck of a deal. I'm going to tell people. People naturally love to share things like that. So we'll do things like we'll send little things in the box if we know things about the customers when they call in that we'll take notes on, like are you a Atlanta Falcons fan? We'll try to throw something in that box, and we'll do stuff like that. But really, it's give them incredible service, right? So we'll ship their garments out. They get it 9+ days before their event. We'll reach out and say, hey, did everything fit? And a lot of that can be automated, but it looks personalized, and it is personalized. Did everything fit? We'll send text messages, and then, hey, call us right away if something didn't fit, and we usually get the replacements out within the next day. So we're incurring a lot of cost doing that, but if you think about it, we're giving a customer an incredible experience from start to finish. So promoting word of mouth and virality is all about that value equation, right? Whatever the customer is paying for your product or service or good, make what they're getting feel like it's way more valuable than that. And that's it. Because if you can do that, everyone will go and tell their friends about it. A few other things I would say that are important there, virality as well. People can forget about your product even if they loved it, if it's more of a situational type thing where it's like weddings, right? How often are you in weddings? So making sure that your email funnel and your email flow is really good, even post-event, just sending them reminder emails like, hey, we launched this new style, or remember this, or hey, if you've got friends, let them know about this, and just very light, every couple of months in a quick email, things like that. We've noticed that does really well for people as well. That's a great question on finding me on my website. So we're Menguin, menguin.com, like penguin with an M. That's our website and our service right there, online suit and tuxedo rental. And then you guys can find me across the web, usually whatever your social media handle is, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, /B Constantine. Yeah, last advice for early stage entrepreneur. That's a great question. Don't give up. It's really, really hard in the kind of beginning stages. I think the two pieces of advice I would give anyone that's starting a business is do it it took me a really long time to take the plunge. I knew I wanted to do it for a while, but you can always find, oh, I'll do it next month after this vacation or after I pay off this or that. It's like kind of like having a baby. It's never going to be the right time to start a business. So just if you this is something that you feel in your gut and in your heart that you want to do, just jump in, both feet wide into this, and then once you're in, it's going to be harder than you ever thought possible. Don't give up. I think the number one trait that a successful entrepreneur has, it's not, that they have a great product or that, they have figured out fundraising or they got money from, whoever. It's grit, right? Can you weather the storm? Because I can tell you there's going to be a pretty awful storm, a lot of them, a lot of downs before the ups and things like that, a lot of hurdles. If you can walk through walls and climb that mountain, you will be successful no matter what. It's all a function of how quickly you are, how likely you are to give up. If you don't give up, you're going to succeed. I promise that. And that's really, I think the number one thing is grit. Don't give up and just do it. Like the Nike slogan, literally, throw your shoes on and start your company, start your business, start your product, whatever it may be. And once you do, just expect that it's going to be hard. If it was easy, everybody would do it, right? And if that was the case, if everybody was going to do it, you wouldn't have this opportunity that you have. So just do it, and then don't give up once you're in there. Literally, there's a reason you did this, right? There's a reason you had this idea or this thought process. Just give it everything you've got so that should it fail, and a lot of them do, and if they do, that's great, you'll learn a lot. But should it fail, at least you can say that you gave it your all, and you'll have no regrets, in 50 years down the line, whatever it may be, that you looking back, that you did something that you knew was you had to do, and whether it failed or not, it doesn't matter. There's a pride in that, right? And there's a fulfillment in that, which is huge. And that's all I've got, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. If you guys ever want to reach out for additional questions, love the Younger audience. Love what is being done in the space. Something I'm really passionate about. Always reach out to me. I've written a couple of posts, or actually just one now. I hopefully can do more soon. Or would love to do more soon on a variety of different things. But always reach out on social, anywhere like that. Would love to help in any way I can. Thank you, guys. Peace.